Today's video has been sponsored by Thrive Market. So I've been wanting to come back to this video for a while, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it was the birth of all of the wax paper in the oven jokes that have lived on in my comment sections to this day. Also, it was the first time my brother ever made an appearance in a food video and harassed me the whole time. And most importantly, it was the start of all of the subsequent pumpkin spice madness. But that video was 9 years ago now, and I haven't touched that recipe since, so today, we're not only gonna remake that original one, hopefully with no melted wax on the bottom of the crust, but also make a new and improved version of the pumpkin spice pizza using a couple chefy tricks I've learned throughout the years. I am very excited for this one, so let's get right into it. Throughout all of the pumpkin spice months, we usually create and consume some pretty gnarly stuff. These pizzas are no exception. But thankfully, Thrive Market is here to make sure we've got some high quality stuff in our diet too. Thrive Market is an online, membership-based grocery store offering the highest quality products delivered right to your door with savings on every order. They use the highest quality standards in the industry with over 1,000 restricted ingredients from their products. You can rely on them for affordable organic groceries with trusted ingredients and toggle between a variety of dietary preferences and restrictions, which by far is what drew me to Thrive Market the most. When I go shopping for any type of food or snack in literally any store, I have to sit there and read the ingredients on every single item because of my allergies to peanuts and tree nuts. So it's kind of hard for me to accurately express how much a relief it is to be able to just click one button and then everything I'm seeing on that page I'm able to eat. And all orders over $49 ship free with no tipping or additional fees. Plus, if you find a lower price on an item somewhere else, Thrive Market will match it. So make Thrive Market your go-to for convenient, healthier, and affordable grocery shopping by clicking the link in the top line of the description or scanning the QR code on screen now to go to thrivemarket.com/David Seymour and join today. And when you do, you'll get 30% off of your first order plus a free gift worth up to $60. Like I said, let's start today by remaking that original 2015 Buzzfeed pumpkin spice latte pizza. I grabbed sugar and a can of pumpkin, instant coffee and marshmallows, pumpkin pie spice, and some pizza dough. This thing is so old that I can't even find the original upload of this video. I've been showing you somebody else's re-upload. But God, does this thing bring me back to the good old days when things were just so simple. I could just make a pumpkin puree sauce and then smother that on a store-bought pizza dough with some marshmallows and call it a damn day. There was no such thing as 100-hour brownies or Jake and Logan Paul or a putrid cesspool known as X. Having said that, there are a few technical things that I would change if I was remaking this for myself off camera. I would cook some of the water out of the pumpkin. I would pre-cook the dough because there's no way marshmallows brown and pizza dough cooks in the same amount of time. But I followed the recipe and the cooking times and temperatures to a T, and by the looks of this, suddenly everything's gonna be okay. My eyes don't believe what they're seeing right now. It has been a very long time. Honestly, it's pretty good. It's a lot better than I remember it being. It's better than I was expecting it to come out again. The crust is just barely cooked enough for you to be able to eat it. Still extremely doughy in the middle, but edible. But the sauce and marshmallows, I've got no problem with. Maybe it's even better because I let the sauce sit in the fridge overnight, so the pumpkin really absorbed all the flavors we put into it. But if I or any of you ever remade this again with those little technical tweaks I mentioned, this would be absolutely delicious. With a crispier crust and a little less watery sauce, I think this would be really good. Either way, I think I've avenged myself now. I think we could stop making wax paper jokes. But how about a 2024 version, 2.0, where I fully allow my creativity and insanity to run wild to create my perfect pumpkin spice pizza. I grabbed some bread flour and milk, sugar, lots of eggs, and olive oil, ricotta cheese, butter, a pie pumpkin and kosher salt, never-ending Parmesan and whole nutmeg, pumpkin pie spice, active dry yeast, fresh sage, an apple, and some sweet cheddar. To get it out of the way now, in case that intro wasn't enough of a cautionary measure for you, this is gonna be extra I don't expect anyone else to make this. But when I was deciding between crafting a practical and easy to make recipe and just allowing myself to go nuts with what I think might be good, I elected the latter option, as you will see. For the pizza dough, we're gonna be bringing back the pumpkin spice brioche loaf recipe I made a couple years ago and seeing just how versatile this recipe can be after the French toast, the burger buns, now a pizza dough. I did give it an overnight proof in the fridge in its bulk form just to really develop those flavors, really ensure good gluten structure, and I use all bread flour for this version rather than a split between all-purpose and some bread. The next day, I just lopped it in half, reformed them, and let them sit out at room temp until I was ready to use them. And after that, I just went through prepping every other component and topping that I was gonna need for this, from the ricotta sage and olive oil mix that I'm gonna pipe on the top of my finished pie, and frying some of those sage leaves off for a crispy little garnish. For the sauce component, I was really trying to find a way to keep that real pumpkin involved. I just couldn't make it work. We are using real pumpkin in this, as you saw in the ingredient list, but for the sauce, we're gonna keep it to a very basic bechamel, thickened with the roux, seasoned with salt and pepper. The parm and nutmeg should blend in perfectly with the flavor profiles we're going for here. For the cheese, I found this really interesting, sharp, sweet cheddar that I had never tried before, but it was freaking good. It was super sharp. It has those little flavor crystals in there. And what's another component that is super fall coated and goes perfect with cheese? Apples. And the pumpkin, of course. I cleaned that up. I chopped both of them down to a little dice and roasted them off with some olive oil and salt and pepper. Still achieving our fresh, real pumpkin component without it being a slathered puree, overpowering everything else. And then finally, it was time to throw it all together, which I was a little nervous for. After all, I had never made this off camera or in practice. This was all just dreamt up and written out of things that might work in theory. And after all, this is the channel of the recipe tests. Who's to say I can't test my own? But really it was because I didn't want to make this 2 times. This is a lot of stuff. I baked it off on my blazing hot pizza steel for about 8 minutes or so, and when I pulled it out, I'm not sure if it's exactly what I imagined in my head, to be honest, but I don't think it looks bad. And it smells incredible, for sure, so let's give it a shot. To those of you who care, I did eventually cave and let Steven add his zombie fish. Gather round, kids, gather round. I'm gonna teach you all a lesson in why you don't use butter-based doughs for your pizzas, because as good as the top looks,
it's charred up. What the f?
Butter burns very quickly, so I should have took this out earlier, or I should have cut the butter in half in the recipe with some olive oil. Kind of a stupid oversight on my part, but you live and learn. So there's certainly a lot going on here. It took me a minute to process. Shockingly, the char on the crust isn't terrible. It kind of blends in. There's no like overpowering burnt flavor happening. I love the pumpkins and apples. My biggest complaint is I went way too heavy with the Parmesan. There's already so much in that bechamel sauce mornay that I did not need to sprinkle that much on top afterwards. That's what's really kind of dominating your palate. But I gotta tell you, I don't hate these flavors together at all. It is salty and savory and umami with the little pops of the sweet, and I just love ricotta cheese in general, so I wouldn't call this a wash or a failed experiment by any means, but would I try to sell it or like serve it to other people? It's not quite there yet.